The wild journey of Shocking Blue kicked off with none other than Robbie Van Leeuwen, a brilliant yet unpredictable guitarist who had a serious habit of starting bands and then vanishing when things got real. This guy wasn't just a musician, he was a serial band hopper with a flair for chaos. He bounced between groups like Ricochet's, Six Young Riders, and Motion. But it was with Motion that Robbie finally hit the jackpot, earning some recognition and cash after becoming the first Dutch act to actually break into the music charts. Huge, right? But the minute the fame fizzled and the money stopped flowing, he disappeared. Again. Then came a turning point. He joined forces with bassist Klausia Vanderwall, drummer Cor Vanderbeek, and singer Fred Du Wild. Together, they formed a boy band and gave it a name that sounded electric, Shocking Blue. Rumor has it, the name was a nod to Eric Clapton's track Electric Blue. Pretty bold, huh? Thanks to Robbie's music, world connections, and his own wallet, the group scored a deal with the British label Polydor Records and managed to record their very first album. They leaned into that trendy rhythm and blues sound that was everywhere at the time, but plot twist, the album totally flopped. No one was feeling it, and they were dangerously close to being forgotten forever. But instead of falling apart, something unexpected happened. Robbie, who usually bailed at the first sign of trouble, decided to lead. He pulled the band together with a powerful message: style is nothing, music is everything. And just like that, the fire was lit. Shocking Blue was slowly crawling out of obscurity. Their first glimmer of hope came with a modest hit, Lucy Brown is Back in Town, which climbed to number 21 on the Dutch Top 40. It wasn't a chart topper, but it was finally something. Just when it seemed like they might catch a break, disaster struck. Fred Du Wild got drafted into the Dutch army, leaving the band frontmanless. Total disaster. It felt like the whole thing could unravel right then and there. But just when it seemed like the band was about to crumble, in walked their saving grace, Mariska Veres. And no, this wasn't some random singer off the street. Mariska had been putting in the work long before her name ever became tied to Shocking Blue. She kicked off her career with a guitar band called Les Misters, recording an EP that featured tracks like Summertime and Someone. Then she hopped from band to band, singing with the Bumblebees, the Blue Fighters, Denny and His Favorites, and General 4. At one point, she was even rocking the stage with the Moderns, singing and playing the organ. Talk about multi-talented. Now, here's where the story takes a slightly juicy turn. Some say fate didn't just stumble her way into the band. A producer from Pink Elephant, the label that Shocking Blue had just recorded with, saw Mariska performing with the Bumblebees at a party, and he was blown away, instantly smitten by her style, her presence, her voice, everything. He couldn't resist helping her out. So what did he do? He played her solo album Tub Copy for Robbie Van Leeuwen. Robbie was hooked the second he heard her voice. Her sound, her energy, it was electric. He wasted no time and asked her to join the band as Fred's replacement. And just like that, a spark ignited. According to Van Leeuwen, Mariska didn't just fill a vacancy, she transformed the entire vibe of Shocking Blue. The band's creativity exploded, their energy soared, and best of all, her arrival lit the flame that would become their biggest global hit, Venus. The moment Venus dropped, it exploded like dynamite on the global music scene. It didn't just chart, it skyrocketed straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it the first Dutch song in history to dominate the American charts. People in the industry were absolutely shocked. How did a band from tiny Holland pull off something British rock legends had been chasing for years? It wasn't just a fluke. Venus became an all-out anthem, bold, sultry, and dripping in psychedelic swagger. It was powered by one of the most unforgettable guitar riffs of its era. Every beat screamed confidence, especially the raw, unstoppable energy of feminine power that pulsed through the lyrics. Behind the magic was Robbie Van Leeuwen, who stitched together the tune using the melody from a banjo track by Tim Rose and The Big Three, which itself was a reimagined twist on the old Stephen Foster tune, Oh Susanna. Pretty wild, right? That now comic opening riff even channeled the same electrifying punch as The Who's Pinball Wizard. And get this, they recorded it all on a simple 2-track tape recorder at Sound Push Studios in Blaricum, Netherlands. Yeah, Van Leeuwen wasn't just the guitarist, he took on producer duties too. And here's a fun twist the fans still laugh about. There was a typo in the lyrics. Instead of singing goddess on top of the mountain, the line was written as godness. But Mariska Veres, who wasn't fully fluent in English yet, didn't spot the mistake and sang it exactly as written. On the record and during live performances. Later versions fixed it, but that little slip up, it became part of the song's quirky charm and nostalgia. As Venus blazed across Europe, record labels were in full-on panic mode. Everyone wanted a piece of Shocking Blue, but only one man pulled it off: Jerry Ross, the head of Colossus Records. He was already in Europe on a talent hunt when he heard Venus, and the second it hit his ears, he knew. He had to sign them. And the gamble? It paid off so massively that Ross shut down his entire studio and retired the very next year. Talk about a mic drop moment. After Venus turned the world upside down, Shocking Blue wasn't about to slow down. They came back swinging with a wave of unforgettable hits, including the hypnotic Love Buzz and the soul-stirring Mighty Joe. And wow, these tracks weren't just follow-ups, they were full-blown statements. Love Buzz in particular was a total sonic trip. With its exotic sitar-like bass line, it wrapped listeners in a dreamlike haze from the very first note. It was mysterious, sensual, almost otherworldly. You could practically feel the Indian psychedelic influence oozing through every sound, fueled by the post-Beatles wave of Eastern fascination. Robbie Van Leeuwen didn't just write a song, he built a soundscape soaked in mystique and seduction. And let's talk about Mariska Veres on this track. She was haunting. Her vocals were soft, sultry, and almost spellbinding, totally different from the fierce, commanding presence she brought to Venus. This time, she pulled you in close, whispered in your ear, and kept you hooked with that silky, obsessive edge that defined late 60s psychedelia. Love Buzz wasn't just about romance, it was about that deep, magnetic obsession, that dizzying rush of infatuation that borders on madness. Decades later, guess who picked up on that vibe? None other than Nirvana. When they covered Love Buzz for their debut album Bleach, they cranked up the chaos, slamming it with distortion, grit, and Kurt Cobain's signature raw emotion. They kept the bones of the song, but stripped it down to pure, unfiltered grunge energy. The result? Proof that Love Buzz was way ahead of its time. Then came Mighty Joe, a totally different flavor, but just as impactful. This track leaned more into classic pop rock territory, wrapped in a bittersweet melody, and built on a crisp, catchy guitar riff. It had soul, it had heart, it had just enough bounce to make it feel light, even though the lyrics carried a quiet ache. And Mariska, she shined. Her voice wasn't just performing, it was feeling. You could hear the ache, the strength, the vulnerability, all woven into one breathtaking delivery. It was like she was on the verge of breaking, but she never did. And that resilience hit deep. While Mighty Joe didn't conquer the US charts like Venus, it struck gold in Europe, especially in the Netherlands and Germany, becoming a fan favorite that still holds a place in the hearts of many. And honestly, critics today agree it's one of Shocking Blue's most underrated gems. So let's set the record straight. Shocking Blue was not a one-hit wonder. Tracks like Love Buzz and Mighty Joe proved their creative fire ran deep. These songs showed off their wild range, and Mariska Veres' almost magical ability to twist genre, mood, and emotion with just her voice. After dominating the start of the decade with smash hits, Shocking Blue began to feel the weight of their own success. Their mastermind, Robbie Van Leeuwen, suddenly found himself running on empty. The pressure to keep cranking out hit after hit was relentless. Radio DJs were constantly asking, "What's next?" Fans were hungry, and the industry expected more chart toppers on demand. But here's the truth. Between the endless touring and non-stop interviews, Van Leeuwen barely had time to breathe, let alone disappear into the creative zone he needed so badly. To keep the machine running, the band began sliding cover songs into their albums. It was a clear sign that burnout had crept in. Though they still had flickers of brilliance and a few songs that charted across Europe, nothing came close to matching the lightning strike that was Venus. That slow fade chipped away at Van Leeuwen's motivation until he finally called it quits, walking away in search of something new. But he didn't vanish, not even close. Van Leeuwen returned with a fresh project called Galaxy LN and released Long Hot Summer, proving he still had more to say. Later, he embraced a slick new sound with the synth-heavy band Mistral, dropping a trio of groovy, futuristic disco tracks, Jamie, Starship 109, and Neon City. Each one sparkled with his signature edge, just drenched in space-age vibes. Mariska Veres wasn't far behind. After Van Leeuwen's departure, she launched a solo career that kept her in the spotlight for several more years, but by the time the 70s cess wound down, it was obvious to everyone the magic of Venus was lightning in a bottle. Rather than trying to chase that impossible high, the band chose a different path. They leaned into their legacy, letting Shocking Blue live on through reissues, fan nostalgia, and powerful reunions. Their first comeback saw them record a mysterious track titled Louise, which, oddly enough, was never released. No one really knows why. Still, they hit the stage again, thrilling crowds with unforgettable performances of Venus, and and Never Marry a Railroad Man. Another mini reunion followed with the release of The Jury and the Judge and I Am Hanging On to Love. Finally, they dropped one last single, Body and Soul. It seemed like Shocking Blue might keep resurfacing forever until tragedy struck. Drummer Cor Vanderbeek passed away, dealing a heartbreaking blow to the group. Not long after, Mariska Veres lost her battle with cancer, then bassist Klausio Vanderwall also passed, leaving Robbie Van Leeuwen as the last remaining member of Shocking Blue's classic lineup. It was the end of an era. Sure, Venus is the crown jewel in their legacy, but reducing Shocking Blue to a one-hit wonder? That's not just unfair, it's flat out wrong. This band had depth, vision, and fearlessness. They weren't chasing formulas, they were shaping sound. While they didn't become the next Beatles, they didn't have to. Shocking Blue carved out something entirely their own. A raw electric pulse that still echoes through generations raised on real music, before auto-tune and algorithms flattened everything into sameness. Even though most of the original Shocking Blue lineup is no longer with us, their music, it's still very much alive and thriving. Venus continues to echo across the globe like a timeless anthem, whether it's blasting in a blockbuster movie, slipping into a slick commercial, or spinning on classic rock radio. That unmistakable guitar riff grabs attention instantly. It's bold, it's catchy, and it refuses to be forgotten. New generations are discovering it every day, and they're hooked. But let's not forget, Shocking Blue was so much more than just one song. Deep cuts like Love Buzz have taken on a second life thanks to the ripple effects they left behind. Nirvana's gritty, raw cover of Love Buzz didn't just honor the original, it introduced millions of alternative rock fans to Shocking Blue's dreamy, psychedelic world. That cover turned a hidden gem into a rock cult classic. It was proof that their sound, full of trippy vibes and emotional depth, had a timeless quality that still hits hard. And the influence doesn't stop at covers. Shocking Blue's sound was a fearless mashup of pop, rock, rhythm and blues, and psychedelia, a blend that helped shape the evolution of modern music. Their fearless approach to songwriting and genre bending made one thing crystal clear. You don't have to come from a major music capital to make it big. They were pioneers, showing the world that a band from the Netherlands could conquer the international stage. And that's legendary. Their story is a shining example of what happens when bold voices, inventive writing, and a little musical magic collide. Shocking Blue proved that hits don't always follow rules, and sometimes the most iconic songs come from the most unexpected places. After the band's main era faded, the members followed their own paths. Robbie Van Leeuwen kept pushing creative boundaries, diving into new genres and teaming up with fresh talent. While his post-Shocking Blue projects didn't replicate the worldwide craze of Venus, they still showcased his sharp instincts as both a composer and a producer. In the Dutch music scene, he remained a respected, trailblazing figure. Mariska Veres, whose voice could stop you in your tracks, launched a solo career that allowed her to explore new vocal territories. Her solo work may not have had the same spotlight as her days in Shocking Blue, but it gave her the space to shine in fresh and powerful ways. That unforgettable voice always found a way to stand out. The losses of Cor Vanderbeek, Mariska Veres, and Klausio Vanderwall were heartbreaking and marked the true end of an era. But the music they created, it's forever. Each of them left a stamp on Shocking Blue's sound that can't be erased. Their songs still move people, still inspire, and still echo with the rebellious, electric energy that made them unforgettable. Shocking Blue's legacy still burns bright, and here's why. Their music has this raw electric pulse that refuses to age. It breaks past decades, past trends, and lands straight in the hearts of anyone who listens. There's a real emotional intensity baked into their songs that connects across generations, and it's not by accident. These weren't cookie-cutter tracks. They dared to mix rock, pop, blues, and psychedelic sounds into something that felt alive. Every song carried a sense of bold experimentation and fearless creativity. In a music world that often chases quick fame and disposable hits, Shocking Blue stood out by being genuinely original. Their sound wasn't polished to perfection, it was authentic, gritty, and unforgettable, and that's what makes them timeless. They showed us what happens when unique voices, wild ideas, and a spark of chemistry collide at the right moment. They didn't follow the rules, they made their own, and decades later people are still listening, still feeling it, and still inspired by the magic they created. So now the real question is, what grabs you the most about Shocking Blue's legacy? Let us know in the comments below.